In this video, we're going to talk about why your pelvis is twisted and how to fix it. Watch to the end so you understand why your pelvis might seem twisted when it's not really, what things cause that twisted pelvis that you can't fix anyway, and which things you can fix and how you can go about doing it. Before we jump into two things that may trick you into thinking you have a twisted pelvis, I want to ask you, when did you notice that you had a pelvic rotation, and what are you doing about it right now? Drop me a comment down below. When we're talking about a twisted or rotated pelvis, we're looking at the pelvic bone, which is these two things that look like elephant ears that join together right here where your naughty bits are. Actually, technically, your naughty bits are not here, they're down here. Was that good for you? So pelvic rotation is when one side of the pelvis is more forward than the other. So this is a left rotation of the pelvis, this is a right rotation of the pelvis. Now there are a couple things that could cause a rotation of your pelvis that you don't have any control over. If one leg is longer than the other leg, then when you're standing, you're going to have an asymmetry that's going to twist your pelvis. Because we stand on two legs, if one leg is longer than the other, we're going to be torqued and twisted. Another thing that you don't control that may affect your twisted pelvis is the actual shape of your pelvic bones. In fact, nobody has a perfectly symmetrical set of elephant ears in their pelvis. You have a right ilium and a left ilium, and they're not always going to be perfect mirror images of each other. In fact, they probably aren't in anybody. That means two things. First, if one side is shaped differently than the other, then the way your femur joins in with the pelvis on each side may be a little bit different, and that may cause some difference in how your pelvis is situated. It may also mean that what you think is a pelvic rotation could actually just be a difference in the shape of your pelvis. We may get fooled into thinking there's a pelvic rotation if there's more bony protuberance on one side versus the other side. In a case like that, you'd want to look for other clues of a pelvic rotation. Now let's take a second to talk about one of the most obvious causes of pelvic rotation and what you can do to untwist your pelvis no matter what the cause of your pelvic rotation is. Hey, I want to say a big thanks to Lisi and Helping Humans, both of you, for the $50 donations to support this channel. Also, a huge thanks to Jurg, who gave 25,000 Chilean pesos 2 times. So thanks so much, Jurg. And if you don't know how much that is, go look it up. And finally, I want to say a big thanks to Becky and Tony. Your donations also help support this channel. Donations of any size are greatly appreciated. You can use the thanks or the join button down below, or you can use the Patreon or PayPal links you'll find in the description box. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's get back to your twisted pelvis. Now, even though a skeleton is really helpful for understanding anatomy and understanding how the human body works, it's important to realize that there's a lot missing from this picture. So let me ask you a question. In real life, what is actually changing the position of the bones in space? Is it the hand of God moving our bodies all the time? Are there spirits lost in time that are moving our joints to a rhythm that we don't understand? Muscles. Let me say it again. Muscles. Muscles are what move our bones. Muscles are what position and change the positions of our bones in space. Without muscles, bones don't go anywhere. They just go straight down to the floor. You have muscles all over your body. When muscles on one side are pulling a little bit harder, a little bit shorter on one side than the other, it's going to cause an asymmetry. If you have some abdominal muscles or some hip muscles pulling a little bit differently on one side versus the other, then you're going to notice that the pelvis is suddenly in a pelvic rotation. Now, this doesn't mean that you necessarily have to stretch. It could mean that you have to strengthen some things. For some people, stretching is a really key component of untwisting the pelvis. Some people have really stiff, shortened hip muscles that lock them into a pelvic rotation. Other people are really bendy and flexible already, but they still have a pelvic rotation, and that's not because they need to stretch more. It's because they lack the strength and coordination to hold their bones in the place that they want. Now, you might be thinking, how would we all get asymmetrical in the first place? Great question. For the answer, you can look right at your right hand. For those of you who may be the love children of evil spirits and human beings, you might want to look at your left hand. What I'm getting at here is that 99.9% of humans have a dominant hand, a dominant side, and we tend to use one side differently than the other. You'll never catch me holding a camera with my left hand only, nor will I use scissors with my left hand either. I can't even dig with my left hand. You might prefer kicking with your right foot, you might prefer kicking with your left foot. You almost definitely use your mouse and your phone asymmetrically, and if you're doing any sort of sport, you're playing it one-sided. All of this means that we regularly practice things asymmetrically, and whether that's an upper body motion or a lower body motion doesn't matter. All of it will affect the entire human body and will make us train in asymmetries from head to toe. If we're not aware of this process at play, then we suddenly find ourselves really twisted, hurting, and wondering what we can do to get out of it. Massaging some of these muscles might produce some temporary benefit. We might feel better for a little while, but if we don't learn how to counteract the asymmetries and train the muscles to do what they need to do to have a stable, neutral pelvic rotation, then we're going to be stuck with our pelvic rotation. Was that good for you? Oh yeah! Now what if one leg is actually much longer than the other leg? What would you do then? So to make this really clear, I'm using some sandals to show you what happens when I have a leg length difference. If I have my right leg longer than my left leg, then it's going to force my pelvis into this little tilt and rotation. There's no way training my muscles alone is going to get rid of this problem because I still have to stand on this longer leg. Now, if I want to do exercises to train my lower body strength and flexibility, I need to keep this in mind, because if I just do exercises like the squat when I have this big difference, then when I go down into it, I'm forced to do the rotation. I'm going to have to accommodate for it, and my muscles are going to start positioning my ribs and all that in a different way, because otherwise I'll fall down, right? So I'm trying to stay balanced. But if I want to keep training without having to use lifts in my shoes, then what I'm going to need to do is then make sure I'm doing unilateral exercises like going down into split squats or lunges or whatever, so that I don't notice and my body doesn't have to accommodate for that rotation, right? So then I can build strength on one side at a time, and still I need to remember that if I really want to get rid of that rotation, I'm going to have to do something to effectively make my other leg the same length, and that's going to probably involve something like a lift. If you want more info on this, I'm going to link to a video in the description box about testing yourself for a true leg length discrepancy. Determining whether you actually have a leg length discrepancy is not as easy as going to your primary care doctor and asking for an x-ray. Not only would your doctor probably look at you funny and send you on your way home, but it'd be really hard to determine whether you are lying perfectly symmetrically on the x-ray table and whether or not the x-ray gave you a really solid, accurate measurement. If you're lying even a little bit off kilter or you have your legs at a slightly different angle, you're going to change the measurement of the leg length. If you're now wondering what exercises and stretches you can do to fix your pelvic rotation, then be sure to check out the videos here. If you want to support this channel, hit the thanks button or the join button, or use the PayPal or Patreon links that are in the description box. Like, share, and subscribe with the bell notification on, and as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.